he wants to establish a culture in an organization, the way he looks at an organization. We have a culture here that's been very successful for us, and quite frankly, the most successful part of a culture is getting good players. So if you get good players, then you're probably going to have a pretty good culture. And with the way Dr. Buss has run this team, and now with Jeannie and Jimmy, we think our culture for the last 30 years will continue.
Is there a pressure when you hear the fans chanting "We want Phil leaving" for the last game of the season? Any pressure on the organization that you can recognize?
You have to understand the passion in a fan. During that last game, a fan came up to me in the fourth quarter and really, just got really close and was passionately pleading to me to do something about the score in the fourth quarter of that game. And at some point, I understand, but I said, do you understand that we don't have Kobe, we don't have Nash, we don't have Blake? And he looked at me and says, yeah, I know all that, but can't you do something? So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with in Los Angeles, a passionate, dedicated fan base. And I understand that completely. We all felt the same way. I felt bad for Mike. It's not something that a coach who works as hard as he does has to endure, in particular with the situation or the circumstances revolving those last two games. But I knew what I was stepping into when Jerry West retired, and Mike knew what he was stepping into. The coach that followed John Wooden, the coach that followed Dean Smith, the one that's going to follow Mike Krzyzewski, you have to assume a certain amount of stress and criticism if you're going to take that position. And Mike knew when he took the job.
Mitch, you said after Dr. Buss passed away that it was really odd. It was a strange feeling to be coming into work. There wasn't that person there that you would look to. How's that gotten better or different, or has it evolved over the course of the last part of the year?
Yeah, not much has changed. As you know, the last 2 or 3 years, although he was the final decision maker, he didn't come in on a regular basis. And I spent more and more of my time with Jimmy, and Jimmy spent more and more of his time with Dr. Buss. So it wasn't like we were spending every day together and then all of a sudden he was gone. But there are many moments, when you reflect and you say, well, I wonder, how Dr. Buss would approach this situation, or what would he do, what is he thinking? You have those kind of thoughts.
Mitch, Dwight said that you weren't going to pressure him into making any kind of decision. Is that normal protocol for you, or are you just sort of reading that situation relative to him?
And when we brought him to Los Angeles last August, that's what I told him. There's really no reason to pressure him. From a business point of view, it doesn't make sense to sign a contract until July. He gets the extra percentage year to year, and he gets the extra year. So you'd be pressuring somebody to do something he can't do. It makes no business sense.
But now, coming into this free agency period, where he is going to get the year,
I think he understands that the sooner he makes a decision, the better it is for everybody. Now, I don't know if that means a week, a month, or 7 weeks. But I think he understands that the sooner, the better for everybody. It allows us to plan. It allows him to, start putting down roots in the city. People can no longer say, I wonder what he's going to do. Is he going to be gone? He could establish business relationships, foundation, community, charity relationships in the city. So it goes without saying, the sooner, the better. And we're going to support what we said last August, and we're going to abide by our position, and we're going to encourage him to make his decision in a timely fashion, and we're hoping that he chooses to stay in Los Angeles.
Mitch, did he give you any rough sense at all of the timeline?
No, I kind of walked him through the next 6-7 weeks. For example, in basketball, in our business, the next thing that takes place is the lottery, and then the teams in the lottery, the positions are determined. So now everybody knows who's drafting where. And then, the phones start to ring in because you have things that are set in stone. And then as you approach the draft, there's a lot of activity. And then, of course, there's July 1st, which is even more activity with free agents and continued trades. So he understands the timeline. Players typically don't understand that until it's explained to them, which I think is something that was new to him. But it comes down to the same thing. The soonest that he's comfortable, the sooner the better, and I think he understands that, and I think that's his wish as well.
Kobe talked about one more year, give him one more year. Don't you need to take a longer view, though, as well, for the franchise? Kobe's talked about keeping everybody together for one more year, but isn't your job to take a longer view more than just
That's
one more?
correct.
Is that even more so because of the veteran makeup of the team and just the way the landscape is changing in the NBA?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well, it seems like Kobe really wants. In the old days, you could keep it together for one more year, but that's not
He's
so
got
easy.
one more year on his deal.
Right, I know, but so he's trying to keep everybody together for one more year. He's saying keep Powell, keep Dwight, spend all this money. He's talking about he didn't care about what the money costs, but your mandate's different than that. Is it not, as far as the
Well,
money?
I don't have a mandate.
Mhm.
There are challenges with doing that, and once again, like Dwight, players aren't completely in the loop on the collective bargaining ramifications, and you'd love to keep everybody together every year, but it's more challenging than that. So I understand where Kobe's coming from, but I think he also understands where we're coming from and the challenges that we have.
How big a priority is it for you guys this offseason to identify a younger, cheaper talent to bring in? It's something you guys have done a lot of older free agents in the past, veterans, but looking at this team's makeup in the future.
Well, we're going to have to identify, if we keep the team together in somewhat its present state, the collective bargaining agreement really limits how we can add to the team. Since we're a tax-paying team, we don't get a mid-level. We get a limited number of exceptions, and probably the most widely used exception would be the veterans minimum. So you would hope that you'd run across a veteran like an Antoine Jameson, who made a lot of money in his career, and would probably take a deal that's under market to come to try to win a championship. Now, those players are typically older, so it's hard to find a young player that would do that, because if it's a younger player, he's probably not going to take the veterans minimum. And if he did, he's probably not good enough to play. So as much as I'd love to sit here and say we're going to get young, athletic players that can really shoot the ball at the veterans minimum, and they're going to be 24, 25 years old, it's probably not realistic. You're probably going to end up looking at a veteran player who's older and maybe has a high level of skill and a high level of basketball IQ, but he may not be as athletic as he once was. But we'll see.
Mitch, is it accurate, when you look at your tax scenarios, that you're still considering scenarios that include Dwight resigning and Powell still being around? Because of that 19 million figure that has such a huge ripple effect. I think most folks assumed it was going to be.
I think that's in play.
That you are considering scenarios where they could both be back.
It's in play, yes.
Does it give you any pause that
We haven't ruled anything out as of now.
that it seems like Dwight has to go someplace to think long and hard, someplace peaceful or whatever, to think long and hard about taking more money and playing for the Lakers? Like, that wouldn't be just sort of a no-brainer at all. Is there any hesitancy in your, or just like, why would you have to go that route? Or is that just normal procedure?
Let's see what he does. And maybe he'll call me tomorrow, maybe he'll call me in a week, maybe it'll be a month. I don't know. But if he says he needs some time, then we're going to give him some time.
What about, he can't talk to any other teams until July.
Correct.
So he may want that kind of opportunity to at least hear what they have to say, and he may still stay, but you can't make any decisions off that. Is that what you anticipate you'll be dealing with?
That would put us in a much tougher position to do our business, because that'll be after the draft. Assuming that kind of thing took place on July 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, now you're in the 4th or the 5th day of free agency. it's not undoable, but it certainly creates a hardship for us.
So if he's gonna go, that's the reality, but if he's gonna stay, finding out way earlier would be much better for the teams. You're jealous.
The sooner the better, I think, for everybody.
Do you have any clarity on Meta World Peace's intentions of his contract?
No. I'm still trying to get over the Cookie Monster comments from yesterday.
You said he held back wearing the pants because he was afraid we were drugging.
I read that.
Would you have judged him if he came into exits in full regalia?
I read that, and I would never judge Meta.
You like my shirt?
I like the shirt, yeah.
Mitch, does this franchise want Dwight back regardless of how long he takes with his decision, or is there any situation where you want to do your business and maybe start targeting other guys?
You mean if he makes his decision like next November or something like that?
No, probably not in November.
Well, I can't.
Yeah.
So you're asking me to speculate.
I'm just trying to get a pulse of your level of patience. He came in here basically made it like there's no pressure, but there are consequences.
Well, there are always consequences, and I don't think that's an issue. I really don't.
Mitch, you kind of made an effort to spend time and be there for Dwight, at certain times, and develop a relationship with him. Do you get a better sense now of, what he's about and what makes him tick as you move forward with him?
Yeah, I do. The last 2 years, and some of it's been to, because of his, actions, and in Orlando, and what's followed him here in Los Angeles, a lot of the publicity. But the one thing I don't think people understand is that it's been about a year since he had surgery, and here's a guy that had surgery last April, and here it is, a full NBA season later, and played a full slate of games. I ask everybody in here to look back at his March performance when he averaged 20-something points, almost 16 rebounds a game for the whole month. And understandably, people aren't going to say, well, he's not playing as well as he could because he had back surgery. When you're on the court in this league, it means you're ready to play. And I feel as if he's not been given his due credit. He's been underappreciated. And once again, coming to a city on a one-year deal, indicating you're going to wait till the summer, there's certain issues that come along with that. And, a lot of negative publicity and, issues that he's had to deal with. But I don't think he's been given enough credit, for fighting through the injury. Certainly the labrum injury is another significant injury. He missed 2 or 3 games and came back and played the rest of the season. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not to blame for any of it, but I certainly don't feel for a second that he's been given enough credit for what he went through this past year.
Mitch,
Well, it
can
said
you
he
talk
came
about
back
what
like
he
5 or
said?
6 months earlier than he could have, and then so one.
He could have taken the season off.
Well, when you guys got him in August, did you think that was a possibility? When did you actually think we would have?
I thought that I didn't think we'd see him until January or February. When he showed up at the first day of training camp, I was shocked. I really was. I thought we'd see him in January or February.
Mitch, can you talk about what he said to you on the way off the court after being forced?
You know something? I went home that night and I watched Rocky V with Rocky fighting the Russian. And my phone, that's 4. I'm not sure I saw 2, 3. And my phone rang, and someone said, "What did Dwight say to you?" And I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." They said, "Well, look on the TV," and so when there was a commercial, I went to the sports channel, and I saw what they were talking about. I never heard a word he said when he walked past me. So until Sunday evening around 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, I didn't know a thing about it.
Have you since asked him what it was?
I did, and he says he forgets completely what he said, but he was frustrated with the officials and turned around and apparently barked something back at the court.